Field panels made out of 1/4-inch thick plywood are a good choice for many pieces of furniture. Flat panels are just as elegant to me as the raised panel doors. They just add a different look and a different texture. Now this particular piece of birch plywood was literally laying over on the shop floor, and I thought, wow, this would be a great opportunity to talk about how we can really leverage this piece of plywood into a very attractive door panel. Now as you can see, it's flat sliced veneers on the backing material. We've got a very, very light colored streak through the center and then the darker woods on either side. What I'm going to do is make 2 field panels out of this that would, say, be for a matching pair of doors. So I'll start out by ripping it right down the center of this white area to divide the 2 panels. Now just by eye, I'll go back and forth until it seems like I've got it pretty well balanced. So when we cut it, we end up with an even amount of white on both sides. And I think we got it about there. Now what we need to do, of course, is get them to their proper width. Now I don't want to cut any more off of this white area because I want to utilize that in my design. So I'll take the material off the outside edges. The panels we've been working with so far are 10 inches wide, so I'll rip these to 10 inches. Now I wouldn't mind at all using these 2 panels as field panels on a fine cabinet. They've got nice grain texture to them. They've got a little bit of character with these little knots, this white streak down the center. They're book matched so that they reflect upon each other very nicely. There's a good symmetry about them. However, let's take it up a notch and see if we can't do something to dress them up a little bit further. One of my favorite techniques to dress up a flat panel like this is to add a very simple trim in the panels. Now in order to install the trim pieces, I like to cut a groove in there, and that will of course accept the little trim pieces. Now I'm going to set mine up for about a 2 1/4 inch offset from the outside edge. Now of course, being a flat panel like that, it would be frame and panel construction, so there's going to be about a 1/4 inch area that's concealed inside the styler rail. So I'll just come over about 2 1/4 inches. Now I've got a 1/4 inch diameter white side router bit to machine these grooves. I've got it raised up a little bit more than a 1/16 of an inch. And all I need to do is make sure I've got my depth consistent on the field panels. And now we can just pass the part over and create the grooves for our trim pieces. Now what we need to do is move on to these little trim pieces. Now I don't have any birch, but I do have some cherry that's fairly close in color, so that'll get us past this experiment. Now the material I've got here is 1/4 inch thick. I don't know, about 1 1/4 inches wide. It's a leftover piece from something I've made in the past. And what I'm going to do is machine a small T-shape out of this. And what that's going to do is create a T-shaped molding to fit in this groove that we machined earlier. Now I've left my router bit in the router table. It's that same 1/4 inch white side router bit. And what I need to do is adjust my fence so that only a 1/16 of an inch of it is exposed from the fence. The molding is going to be 3/8 wide. Our groove is a 1/4 inch wide, so we need a 1/16 overhang on each side. Now the height of the router bit, we leave the same at the same height as we did when we machined the grooves. Now using a dial indicator, I'll move over exactly a 1/2 of an inch. That would be a 1/4 inch for the width of my cutter, plus a 1/4 inch for the width of the bottom portion of our T-molding. Now when I take this second cut, it'll cut on the opposite side of the bottom leg of our T, and then we can rip off the strips to create the actual T moldings. Now working with my miter gauge here at the table saw, what I need to do is create a 45-degree miter on both sides of our trim pieces. And that way when all 4 pieces come together at that one intersection, I'm going to have a nice mitered joint where all 4 pieces meet up. Now I like to do these real small precise cuts here at the table saw as opposed to the big compound miter saw, but that's just my personal preference. And what I'm going to do is make my point cuts first. I'll have to maybe take several cuts until I get it balanced perfectly in the center. Then I'll fit it up inside the workpiece and then cut the square end off to its proper overall length. and that fits up good and tight there where those four pieces come together at those points. And now we have our two book-matched field panels. Now there's something I got to point out right away, and that is the length of these trim pieces. Keep in mind that this would be for a frame and panel construction. So we would have a frame going around the outer portion of this. Now we would have to fit these trim pieces in after the panel is in its frame, because there's going to be about 1/4 to 5/16 of an inch of concealed area here that goes inside the groove on the stiles and rails. But then they would just simply get glued in place. Of course, you'd sand them up and round over the edges ever so slightly. Their thickness can vary, but the nice part about these is they create these very effective shadow lines, and it gives the finished piece a different look at different times of the day, because as the sun moves across the sky, the lighting in the room will change constantly, and that constantly changes these shadow lines, and it really makes this type of construction stand out and look nice. Now this could of course apply to any type of furniture style. I tend to favor this type of construction when I'm doing either prairie style type furniture pieces or perhaps even mission style furniture pieces. But I've done this type of a treatment on just about anything that I've built. So it's a very nice treatment that fits all around in different periods of furniture. Now of course this is a very simple pattern. We just got one vertical one on the left door, and then the crossbar at the top continuing over to the other door panel. Now of course you could make them symmetrical, you could make a square pattern. There's just a variety of different techniques that you can use with this application. So that wraps up this one on how to take a very ordinary piece of plywood, in this case birch plywood, and make it a very attractive field panel for a door. Well, I hope you found this issue informative. The one thing I really hope you come away with is the courage to experiment, to explore, and to try some of your own ideas, even if it's just in an explorative situation such as this. If you can't afford to go out and buy some hardwood to cut up into panels to do experimentation with, pick up a sheet of 4x8 MDF. You can pick that stuff up for about $15 a sheet, and it's a great blank canvas for you to try and experiment with all those ideas that are rolling around inside your mind's eye. I'm Chris DeHut for Woodworking at Home magazine. I hope you enjoyed this issue.